Hello, my name is Fahad Faruqui and you're watching The Coffee Table. We've heard the word intent all our life. What does it mean and how does it manifest in our lives is a question that's a little vague. To understand intent, we have with us Nuzhat Siddiqui, who is a writer and an activist. And we also have Omair Rana, who's a seasoned actor and a consultant at Schuitema. Thank you for being with us. Let me start with the question, what is intent?
Well, for us at Schuitema, it is the meta philosophy, the core thematic, which came out of a 7-year research and explains exactly what drives human behavior.
Omair, could you speak to in lay people's language?
Yeah, sure, of course. I think everything eventually does, because it's meta philosophy, which is the core of all philosophy, it becomes simpler. When I ask you what intent is, the first things that generally does come to our mind is it's something maybe even spiritual or religious. But the question that we ask, which does throw us off, is can intent be seen? And usually shooting from the hip people would say no. But the moment you pause, you think about it, you say, yeah, of course you can. Because even a child can smell intent on an adult as well. So it is seen in action. So what we say, it is intent that we have to work with, that because intent works with transactions. And the transaction being two parties. Whenever we interact, two parties interact. It could be myself and the other could be a person, a time, circumstance, situation. Whenever these two parties interact, intent manifests itself. And we at Schuitema believe there are two kinds of intent.
So let me hold that thought. Let me ask you, intent is about transaction. Do you agree with that?
I think as a writer, my understanding of intent would be a little bit different.
Okay. How?
Like, for me, intent is not dependent on two parties. Intent can just be one person who wants to do something in life and, decides to do that thing. So it's simpler, or probably more in terms of layperson, where I come from my school of understanding. But I'm happy to learn and I'm happy to change my mind.
But you see where she's coming from. Intent is sometimes about yourself.
Yeah.
I want to get.
Yeah.
So it is about one person.
Yeah.
Of course
But
it
I
is.
know where you're coming from. It's a transactional thing.
Yeah.
But even in that, it can be only particularly about yourself.
Essentially, that's
what I'm
what
going to get out of it.
That's precisely it. I think Nuzhat is spot on in that way. We're two sides of the same coin, really, essentially. But what we're saying is that intent is what's going to manifest all forms of action, because we do not operate in isolation.
Exactly.
We cannot.
Yeah.
Even if I say, for example, the question that we raise to many people is, I would like to be successful in life. So in the context of what Nuzhat's proposed, it's a very isolative, so to speak, perspective. But if I say what is success, and we've gone around the world, all kinds of industry, all kinds of levels, every human being that we've asked to define their subjective definition of success, it has come down in 4 categories. It is security. We cannot feel successful if we do not feel secure. We cannot feel successful if we have security but we don't have fulfillment. Even if we have security and fulfillment, if we don't have a sense of power or self-worth or growth, we don't feel successful. And even if we have security, fulfillment, and power, but if we don't have harmony with people around us, we don't feel successful. So these are the 4 things. We can put it in any different form. We can say, I need a good land, I need money, I need house, that's security. I need to enjoy the work that I'm doing, I need fulfilled. I want to grow, I want to learn, that's power. And I need to get along with people. So that's what
in everyday life, do you really think about intent?
I believe yes. Intent is something...
But is it at a conscious level that you're thinking about, what's my intent in doing this thing?
Actually, if we think about daily life, then what people do, people are so used to going through the motions of everyday life that sometimes they may not even think that what they're doing or what kind of result they're getting from what they've done is based on their intent. So
does intent need to be conscious, or can it be as unintentional as
it should be.
It should be.
I personally believe it should be, because that's the reflective process. Again, I'm simply taking the volleys that Nuzhat is throwing to me right now.
Give us an example.
Let me elaborate first and then progress, if you allow me. We don't pause. We don't consider our intent behind certain things. We do at times love to judge other people's intent.
Absolutely.
And very easily, it is good to be superficial and just look at the actions.
Yeah.
But we as human beings innate have an ability to look at or sense or smell the intent behind the action, or at least judge it if we are doing it. So we are looking for it. Now, how does that manifest itself? Now, when I say security, fulfillment, power, and harmony, we say that you need skills in life to be able to achieve those, but they don't guarantee it. Modern school of thought was behavior. I mean, I've been a management student as well, so behavior or actions would guarantee it. They don't. All of these things are essentially guaranteed by the intent. Now, if I wish to feel secure, fulfilled, powerful, or in harmony with other people, I have the two possibilities of intents. Either I seek intent of getting, i.e., I want security, so I must get it from an external force. Or,
which is what happens most
which
of the
does
time.
happen, yeah. I mean, traditionally in our land of the world, this example I give is, you know what, I'll give you more specific. And Nuzhat's here, so maybe she could, either vouch for it or negate it. Yeah. The general way the women have been raised in our society, it is seek security from the man of your house. Now, that could be your father. That could be even your younger brother, which is sometimes really weird for me.
And most certainly the elder brother.
Well, usually it is, but even at times it is. But you know, you're going to the bazaar, take the younger brother with you. I mean, he's more of an asset or a liability. Which one are we talking about? But seek security from a boy, or your husband, or your son.
What's wrong with it? Is there something wrong with that?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. What is actually wrong with that is this: because when you seek a relationship based on security, seeking security from the other, you're essentially setting yourself to be more insecure. And what happens? I mean, all the dramas that I've had to be involved with, that's food for us. Why? Because the husband usually comes back from home at 6, spends an hour with the mother, and then comes upstairs. Today it's, an hour late. He still isn't up. Uh-oh. And the wife feels insecure because she's been raised to seek security from the man, and the mother's been raised to seek security from the son.
But here's the deal. Our relationships are predominantly of a barter. Is there a problem there in what he's saying? We've become accustomed to it. We want something out of something.
We want something out of something, but you have to understand that in our relationships, especially in Pakistan, the power imbalance basically, negates any sort of balanced transaction. So like Omair said, and he's absolutely right, that when our women are raised to seek security from their male counterparts, even, a brother or a son even who's much younger than you and who hasn't had that experience in life, that insecurity feeds into failure. So even without considering that intent, women are setting themselves up and the society is setting them to fail.
But I want to take a step back.
Yeah.
Are we thinking about this and doing it at a conscious level, that we're looking for security in another relationship and that's something that we are doing wrong? Do we even think of intent and intent within everyday transactions? Do we actually consciously think about it?
No, we don't.
And isn't that a problem?
It is a problem.
Who teaches us to actually think of it this way? I mean, you're very well versed in it, but that's a lot of contemplation and reflection behind it.
Yeah.
But how many people actually do that?
But I agree. In fact, if most of the people did consciously think about it, it'll become easier for them, and their life would be a little more comfortable, more successful. They'll seek that security, fulfillment, power, and harmony, and hopefully will achieve it. It's not a set formula that I plug it in and they're going to do it for the rest of their life. It's a framework in which we should think.
Okay.
And that's what I've learned from application and, of course, passing the message on as well.
But here's the deal. Let me ask you a question. This is what we have learned, that actually you're on the show and you're going to give me $100 for it and you've agreed to it. Okay, Omair? Don't forget about it. Yeah. But I'm going to get something out of it, and that's why you're here, and that's our relationship. Why should it be any different?
No, that is setting up for failure. It is. That's exactly what Nuzhat said. I mean, if I'm here to get something, if I'm here to get fame from this show, and you got me here to get, me on the show,
to get good ratings on the show.
Yeah, to get great ratings. You're a threat to me, and you could exploit me, and I'm a threat to you because I can exploit you.
And vice versa.
Is that a kind of relationship which is harmonious?
But isn't this what prevails?
It does, and how long does it last? And how do people feel with that? You see, there's one particular question. For example, if I want your mobile phone, I mean, the simple example, right? If I want your mobile phone, you're the other, and that's what I want from you. Yeah. I'm immediately a threat. Even there, and this is where the economics kicks in, right? If we negotiate how much price, and you find out that I forgot my wife's anniversary gift, so you're going to jack up the price, right?
Exactly.
So what happens is, the more I want something from you, the weaker I'm becoming, the more exploitable I'm becoming. But let's assume we crack a deal because you're such a lovely, generous human being.
Indeed.
And you pass me the phone. All right, and you pass me the phone, and that's it. But the phone is a tangible thing, and that's done. Majority in our life, we don't want tangible things from other people. We want intangibles.
Yeah.
I want your good opinion. I want you to like me. I want you to give me a praise. I want you to,
Which is always the case.
So you can give that to me right now and take it back right now. Give it to me, take it back, and I'm going to be dancing on the tune that I think you're singing, but essentially I've set it up for myself. So the more I want it, the weaker I'm becoming, and the more intangible it is, the more I'm dancing.
But here's the problem. We do have, our relationships are predominantly conditional.
Well, every relationship has to be conditional. If we go back, let's say.
There we go.
Yeah, if we go back like thousands of years, that's how human beings evolved. You know, these were conditional relationships, and yes, people relied on each other to survive, to, you know, go through life. And I think in civilization, true altruism is very hard to find. So where Omair said, you know, your intent has to be there for, you know, doing good or succeeding or being secure, an absence of that has made relationships even more conditional in this day and age.
She's put us in a very difficult spot.
I'll make it tougher. Let me throw.
Let me ask you a question here. Have we been conditioned to have conditional relationships, that we need to rely on each other?
Well, I don't know if it's well, I'll have to do a good long study on this to be able to come to an affirmative response. But I personally believe it is a fear or greed-based element. The more that has risen, the more we've become conditional relations. But here's the...
So it's more so now than ever before?
Well, could be. I can't really say. I would have to just do a little more research to be able to respond to that more affirmatively.
Exactly. It's kind of troubling.
It is. I'll tell you what's more troubling, and this is really throwing spanner. Schuitema made this, it's one of my favorite quotes, and it really makes you scratch your head if you don't understand the language of Schuitema's, as we call it, intent. He says the successful relationship is not one of give and get. It's one of give and give.
Yes.
Now, in layman terms, one would think that you just need to be generous and be a carpet and let everyone walk over you. But in
Exactly, that's what it means.
But in Schuitema's language, that is not the case. When we say that you have to give and give unconditionally, that's the intent of giving. Yeah. We say there are two possibilities. The possibilities is that if the situation finds it appropriate, it's not about being nice. Giving is not about being nice.
Yeah.
If it's appropriate to be generous, then be generous. But if it's appropriate to be courageous, then be courageous. Because you can't be generous all the time.
Omair, hold that thought. We'll take a short break here. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Omair was talking about giving, and really, I was thinking about only getting and getting, but the question arises in the corporate world, it's taking and taking, or it's giving for the love of taking. And that's also true for the millennials. What do you think about it?
First, I'd actually like to clarify. Are you talking about in the corporate social responsibility
No, I was
sector,
actually thinking about getting chocolate from wherever I can.
Oh.
That's what I was thinking about. But yes, in the corporate sector, pretty much you're giving for the sake of taking. That's what's called barter.
It's very transactional when you talk about like the corporate sector or what they're providing.
Well, he's talking about transaction as well, and he says a good transaction is where you're giving unconditionally.
But I don't think...
Please disagree with him.
I don't think the corporate sector is giving anything without any intent of getting something back. So...
You're saying corporate sector...
They're getting money for whatever they
so they're giving to get what they want
something
back.
Exactly.
Omair?
Oh, I love this. Comes well because...
Explain unconditionality there.
No, I'll give you cases. Remember Enron?
Yeah?
Yeah, and Anderson Cooper went down, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You see, the primary intent or purpose of primary objective of any organization is to create surplus. In some cases, we call it profit. So tell me, how does that work? If three bakers get together and make a cake and they say we want to create a surplus, and Baker A takes a certain slice of the cake, Baker B takes a certain slice, and Baker C takes a certain slice. The only way they can create surplus if they take away lesser slices than what they have produced. What has happened is, in the cases like Enron and so many others, the companies which have caved in is because it has brought in a group of people who are just so cutthroat takers that they took out more than they contributed. And all organizations have collapsed. Even the mortgage crisis that happened in the United States of America. When Greenspan was asked to give one word example, why did it happen? He said, greed. Because people were taking out more from it than they were contributing to it. Therefore, the entire world collapsed because of that mortgage crisis. So when it talks about corporate world, corporate sector, only the organizations in which they have people who are contributing more than they're taking out is what thrives.
But here's the deal. We understand greed is bad.
Yeah.
But then the point is this, when we are in that transaction, we too are greedy.
Well, yes. When it comes to personal preferences or choices, people would be as oblivious of their own greed as they are of their intent, right? And nobody would say, oh, I'm greedy. They would believe that what they're doing is actually not that bad, or
Actually, we're always the saint.
yeah. We're always
least I
sane.
am.
We're not wrong, because okay, I'll give you an example. The environment and climate change movement, right, which is going on right now. A lot of talk is being done, and a lot of people, they say, oh, individual actions are not going to change anything. Corporations who take and take and take and put back so much negativity out into the world, they are responsible. So I'm not going to stop using the plastic. I'm not going to stop wasting water. My impact is not that bad. Stop the corporations. So greed comes in, even if it's on a smaller level.
And Omair, greed comes in with the millennials as well. They can't think beyond themselves. I mean, come on, I can't think beyond myself. So I can't really, I can't really blame them.
You know, I personally, first of all, categorizing the entire millennials into the basket seems a little unfair. But let's say,
Yeah, that's why I included myself.
Exactly. There you go. So even if you do, but I'd vouch for them. On the contrary, in our part of the world, it's the millennials who got politically more aware and active, because the previous generation was more hush and quiet about it.
Yeah.
True.
So they've been more reactive. It was just like how the hippies were growing up in the 60s times, because the baby boomers were so hush and so complacent. So the baby boomers were a little more loud. The hippies were more loud. Now, what I do understand is that everyone has the option. Everyone has the option of whether they want to do something and get something in return, and that's conditional giving. What does that land you? It essentially lands you, again, with the same aspects of getting. I'm going to scratch your back so that I feel secure and fulfilled and, harmonious and powerful.
But
the
Omair,
moment
can
I do
I be devil's advocate
please
here?
do.
Most people will say that isn't it innate that I would only think about myself?
That's where maturity kicks in. Because when the human child is born, they're absolute unconditional takers. They want food now, or as quoting Etzko himself, a baby is like a digestive system with eyes. So they have a particular cycle that goes around. And even when they grow up,
And it never changes then.
it does, absolutely does. I mean, we're parents, we've seen how the child would actually greet you so warmly, and you're like confused. Why does this child want, the cookie jar, which the child
Exactly.
can't reach? But slowly and steadily, the child gets an opportunity to realize that they can do something unconditional, and they get something they receive something. And that's the distinguish of the words I'm playing with. They receive something. How about this? If I ask all of us listening to us right now, how many things have they received till today, just today, without them even asking for it or even working for it or trying to get it? And you can easily list them. And the moment you do that, you realize, all right, I just need to be grateful for what I got. So you do not need to feel that there is no abundance of things around you, that you will not survive unless you get something.
Yeah.
On the contrary, what is in your control is not the infinite others that you're trying to get from. In fact, it's like you fighting against an infinite military. What you do have in your control, at best, is what you do in that situation, what contributions you make. And that's what happens. We're about to reach the next Cricket World Cup. The last One Day International World Cup, we lost against Australia in the quarterfinals. Do you remember anything about that match? The only thing that we probably would remember is Wahab Riaz's bowling. Because he kept giving it in and again and again. Those catches kept getting dropped, but he still kept going in and again and again. because he was focusing on his contributions. We didn't win the match,
Yeah.
but boy, we did feel good about that.
But then here is a problem. We've all worked, you work, and usually at the workplace, people are complaining that the team isn't working and everybody expects me to work. And it happens all the time. It happens in every office.
Yeah, well, I think in a professional environment, of course, there's a mix of people who come in with different intent, about what they want to do.
Or the intent of taking.
With the intent of taking, obviously. And I think in a workplace, when you have so many different egos and so many different personalities with so many different types of intentions about why they're there, and pretty much everybody is a taker and nobody is giving, that's what creates conflict.
But Omair, isn't that pretty much what she's explained, the entire world?
I would not say so. I personally believe if you take any society, if there are more takers than givers, it collapses. Like Enron, for example, I gave you an example of.
But our societies are collapsing.
That's exactly the point. So the warning there is that the only way to survive is when you've got more intents of give happening than intents of getting happening. Even a cutthroat capitalist society like America realized.
Here's my question to you. What incentive can we give the youth or any team player that they give? They focus on their contribution.
Because true success lies on that. You will not feel successful at all, and I can give that to you in writing, if you operate with the intent of getting or even conditional giving. Pure and simple.
But there are people who have made
lots of money, right?
lots of money
and how are
on
they feeling?
getting.
Yeah, and remember how many people jumped off the high rises in the New York City?
I have no...
There you go. How many people have committed suicide, in fact, in spite of the
Do you
fame?
think it's because of that?
Of course. It has a huge thing to contribute. How many people, like Bill Gates, have realized, you know what? The only inheritance I'm giving to my child is this much, a quarter of his entire income. But then Bill and Melinda Gates all of a sudden realize, you know what? We have to focus on our contributions to the world. Why do people do that? Because there's a realization of the arc of maturity that kicks in. That you realize, you know what, all my life I could justify going to work by getting to give. I want to get so that I can give to my child or my household. But even that doesn't work, and we hit a midlife crisis.
What do you have to say about that?
About midlife crisis?
What he has said is actually very dense, and not about the midlife crisis, because he's going to get me a red color Porsche so that I can enjoy my life.
And a leather jacket. You've already got the man bun.
I do have the man bun working for me. But people, even those people who he has named, are those who have spent their entire life taking. So do you spend your entire life taking and then realize that you needed to give something?
I think it's different in different contexts, because I would understand, yes, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they have worked their entire lives, and yes, they have taken a lot, and it has depended on their success and their drive and their intent to get, right? But now that they're giving back, they're still being judged, by the way. Just like you said, why are they giving back? What is their intention? Is it completely altruistic? Is it completely without any motive? Perhaps, perhaps not. But then it depends on our positivity and how we take it. Do we take it as, yes, they're doing something good, and you take it at face value, or do you think, oh, maybe there's a conspiracy there? So,
And there we go. And my producer is a taker, so we have to take a break. Welcome back. So we were talking about intent, and my question to you, Omair, is, were you always a giver?
Well, no, again, I wouldn't say that everyone is, well, first of all, no. No one is always a giver to begin with. The child maturity aspect that I mentioned before the break, we are programmed to get, because that's how we have been trying to survive, as the evolution was talking about. But even now, even if I have this master key, as I call it, I'm not always a giver, because I'm human. I err.
So where did the change come?
For me, personally?
Yes.
It's very ironic. It came during Hajj.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's true. And
Tell me a bit about it, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely not. I had a conflict with my father, and exactly when Hajj was about to begin, I had a call from him, and I felt, I was very cold with him over the phone, because I felt he was now liking me because it was like a conditional giving, so to speak, in my lingo. I was very confused. I had a lot of self-conflict, and there's one gentleman who I did not know well, Sayyid Fakhir Hassan Shah, and he was part of our group. So I don't like to share my personal problems, but I did in that case. And I went up to him and I said, this is my problem, this is what has happened, and what do you think I should do? The typical question we ask, right? But like a good counselor, he never told me what to do. He educated me, introduced me to this thematic of Schuitema's intent.
Can I ask you to very briefly tell me what it was?
The thematic?
Yeah.
Well, essentially that was it, that the world is between two transactions, yourself, and you focus on yourself and not the others, and then there's the others. You either operate with the intent of getting or intent of giving. And it worked in relationship basis for me, because I realized there are 4 aspects that works when I'm operating on intent to get. With my father, I was either trying to control an outcome, or I had some expectations, which is so pivotal for relationships, or I felt it was my right, I was right-driven, or it was my need, I was need-driven. And he said, what you need to do is fix it, your intent, and shift it to give unconditionally. So your outcome is not in your control, but the process is. Your expectations from the others are not in your control, but your contributions are. Your needs can clash with your values. If they do, pay heed to your values. And finally, your rights, you should know, but again, you're seeking rights from another. Your duties are in your control. So you should focus on your duties.
I always feel that my relationship with my father is about me wanting something, a new car, maybe going abroad and getting some money out of him. And I've always wondered why that's the case, and that something really does pinch me a great deal. So on a confessional note, Dad, I love you, but that's on a confessional note. Tell me, you were a mother. As a child while growing up is always taking. So you as a mother are always giving. Can you just go on just giving?
Actually, I think I would go back to what Omair said a while ago, that children, even when they're growing up, they start with, taking and taking. My daughter does. She's 5 years old, and, but that's very surprising in a child.
I still don't get it.
No, really?
Yeah,
No. Because she would see me if I am down or if I am tired, and she would just come and she would just plant a kiss on my cheek. And I haven't given her candies. I have
but
never fed her
she knows she'll
cola.
get a candy.
Nope. She will never get a candy. She has never drunk cola. She is off those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, she comes and plants a kiss on my cheek.
Great.
And that's very, it's
So
just
wait till
giving.
they grow older, she'll become a taker.
Well, it
I
depends.
love the eternal pessimism that is spewing over here. But if I may just jump in.
No, but I'm being a devil's advocate for a reason.
No, you've been quite the Lucifer yourself.
I had the red socks
I
on.
know. If I may jump in for that question that you did pitch to Nuzhat over here. Yes, as a mother, me as a father, we have to be givers. And again, the givers context is very important. When we need to be generous with our children, we will be. But when we need to show courage, and when you have to tell off a child, it requires a lot of courage.
Yes.
You have to be courageous.
So, okay,
but
so
the
at this
beneficiary,
point,
and
you
here's
tell me at what point is courage appropriate and when is generosity appropriate?
I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, you see, you see, if my child.
I'm glad that you're glad.
I'm so glad that you're glad. I'm glad. Anyhow, you see, what happens now is that in certain cases, parents, and I've witnessed this, and I've been a victim of it occasionally as well. If I want my child to like me, to be the popular dad, I will be giving inappropriately. I'll be a getter. I will be generous with them, letting them go, whatever happens. But what happens in our society? The girl is raised, and this is what I say, a son should be raised like a girl in our society. How?
What does that mean?
Exactly. I'm so glad you asked another. You're asking the perfect questions today.
That's actually a very valid point.
Now,
I'm a giver.
Now check this out. In this context, the context I'm
do want
about to say, you will get that, perhaps.
If you're good.
Now, in the context that I'm saying it, is this. We raise a daughter for someone else's household, traditionally in our society, right? She's going to go away. Guess what happens? We focus on her values.
That still happens?
Yeah.
We focus on her values and we
Shockingly
give
so.
unconditionally because she's going to go. The son, he knows that my parents are giving to me because they want me to stay behind.
Stick around.
Stick around and be the bank and be the asset, etc., etc. Guess what happens? When the parents fall ill, The son who lives with them doesn't take care of them. The daughter comes
girl
back
comes.
Yeah.
because she received unconditional love. We need to give our sons the same message as well. We want nothing for you. We have duties as a parent towards you, not the rights. I'm not right focused. You need to know my rights. I need to know yours. Because your rights are my duties and my rights are your duties.
So then why make a distinction between courage and generosity?
Plain and simple, because you can't be generous all the time.
Why?
Let's say, for example, my son has done something criminally wrong. He's lied about something.
He's
and
a bully in school.
All right, that's a little more complicated. I'll tell you why. But let's say he has actually stolen something. Let's just say it's a stark violation of a value that I do not want him to live with. Now, if I want him to be like me, I'll say, all right, be quiet. We won't tell your mother.
Yeah, hush, hush.
That's a getter. So I'll be popular, but I have corrupted my child. So if I genuinely want the benefit of my child, I will tell him off. I will punish him, right? I'm not going to say that I'm going to beat him up. I would not recommend that. I will punish him. I will discipline him so that he understands that this value has been broken and why it has been done so. That requires courage for a parent to do, trust me. It does require a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Now, the bullying aspect, though, is a little more complicated.
Hold that thought. Let me ask you, it takes a lot of time for a child to realize that why she is being disciplined. Do you think children get it? Did you get it while growing up?
Actually,
Did you even get disciplined while growing up?
I did get disciplined while growing up, and even though my parents belong to a very old school way of being courageous.
Oh, then you had that kind of upbringing
I was never beaten up, my brother was, but at the same time, I would say it takes a little while for children to realize that because they're probably not mature enough to understand the consequences and the benefits of their parents being courageous with them.
That's why he mentioned maturity. When does that kick in? For some, it never kicks in. I'm a proud to be child.
You are proud to be a child?
But a child doesn't. Well, hold on. Okay, you're old enough. Age does kick in and help in terms of maturity.
I'm not aging, Omair.
No, well, you're not at all, evidently. but it is not necessarily.
Unlike you.
Yeah. But it's not necessarily, you see, I have seen young people who are so mature.
Yes.
And essentially.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with age.
And they're
on a serious note.
yeah, that's true. And they're elder people who are CEOs and who behave throw a tantrum like a baby would. I don't care how you're going to do it. I want it right now.
Exactly.
Quote unquote.
How do you do that?
That's a childish
and that's
toddler.
definitely a getter.
Of course, that's a toddler behavior, as opposed to a young man who's saying, all right, what do you need from me to be able to help this? Now, that's a very mature approach.
So in workplace, have you ever been in a situation where you're dealing with somebody who's an absolute getter?
Who hasn't?
Exactly.
How do you deal with the getter? I mean, you
Well-
can't sit and lecture a getter that, hey, it's your contribution that matters. And you can't even introduce that person to Omair,
You know
who would
that-
sit and explain.
Oh,
you know,
please
this-
do. Please introduce them to me.
You know, that's where your own maturity kicks in. Honestly, that's where the giving part comes in. Yeah. When you see that this person is only taking and they are not budging to keep the peace, to keep the things going in your life, in your workplace, you say, okay, I'm going to find a solution. I'm going to move ahead. And in a way, the intent is very altruistic because you're killing your own ego to just keep rolling with the punches.
Hold on, that's a beautiful perspective. You guys have pitched up a wonderful thing because it kicks into your relationships as well.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is this particular point, if you've reached a bridge,
Yeah.
and in that situation, you're going to realize, and that kind of touches upon what bullying you were about to talk about.
Yeah.
You've reached this particular point, and you've got a boss, a senior colleague, or anyone who's not budging, who's constantly operating as a taker. And what do? Now, in this situation, what is
Or
appropriate?
in a relationship where the other partner is not
Fair enough.
budging.
Yeah.
And now at this particular point, your question is, do you be generous and let it be?
Yeah.
Or do you be courageous and say, listen, hey, something's wrong. Now, please remember, the primary beneficiary is
You
the
mean
other person.
call the other person
Call
out?
the other person
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And that's the primary beneficiary for the other person. Because many times it's a blind spot. Many times it's a wake-up call. And if nothing, that may not guarantee the person changes. That's the best
and
part.
at times a dead end, Omair.
Agreed.
Hold that.
Agreed.
Because there's so many divorces that happen as a result of that. And we have a high rate of divorce across the globe.
Divorces do not happen because someone has called you out. Divorces
But it
happen
could be
because you have been
partly.
inappropriate for a long period of time. You were there in a relationship whether you're conditionally giving or you're there to get. Pure and simple.
This is a question I'm posing to both of you. Haven't our relationships become disposable?
Relatively more.
And why is that?
Perhaps.
It's because my way or the highway.
Many ways, yes, that's true.
So we're on
And what is
that
that?
mode.
That's intent of get, isn't it?
Of course. But how
Unfortunately,
do you,
that's what happens.
when you call that person out, that hey, your favorite pause, what happens then?
But
They
that's
get upset,
Listen.
anxious.
Here's what it is. Now, let's assume, because we're talking about marital relationships. In the marital relationship also,
Obviously, we can't discuss romantic relationships right now.
well, some of the marriages are romantic. So
Glad to know for those who are married. Glad to know.
for the first 15 years at least.
Did you say 15 days or 15 years?
15 years,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I was just
Yeah,
correction.
I know. So in those kinds of relationships also, they are there to set the other person to be better than they are. It's quite Jack Nicholson. You make me want to be a better human being. And that's what it is. I mean, I take it personally from the Quranic quotes as well. You're garments for each other. It makes sense. In all literature, wisdom makes sense. If I want my wife...
But then people say, again, I'm being a devil's advocate for a reason.
Please, go ahead.
People say in theory that makes sense, but in real life, no.
Absolutely disagree. In all real life
I've
scenarios,
heard
it
this
does.
so many times that the people say, yeah, they will be all wise. Haven't you both realized that people, while giving advice, they'll give the best advice but not follow it?
All right, here's exactly my point. My contribution ends. My contribution ends at the point where I've given that feedback or that advice. Now, their beginning starts over there. Let's say, for example, a very extreme example, a partner is cheating on the other partner. Now, and if you find out, you're in a position, what does giving say over here? Be generous or be courageous? It's a subjective situation. You may cut the rope there and then and say,
You'll
hey.
be angry.
Yeah, of course, it's natural. You would say, sorry, this is not going to happen. This is it. The buck stops, we're done, goodbye. And that's a kaput. Or you'd say, why did this happen? Why is this carrying on? Do I give you one more leeway? And if there is more leeway, that's it. It's done. Now, that's a partner's response. How does the other partner take that on? Now, that's up to him or her. And if they do cross that bridge again, and if they do make the wrong turn, well, this partner knows it's a new bridge, and now I'm not going to be generous. You can't be repeatedly generous in such situations. Now's the time for courage. It's a very painful experience, but you got to do it. And if you shift the angle from the other partner's perspective, their perspective is, I did something wrong. What do I do? And then they say, if I do not want to come to this bridge again, and if I do not want to make the wrong turn. They require courage to make the right decision as well.
But here's what I've realized, that more and more people see themselves as a victim. So it's not even a matter of giving or taking. They'll just suddenly become and play victim. Oh, I was the one being wronged, or I did this because the other person did that. And it's the corporate sector, romantic life, marital life, whatever it is.
Yeah, everywhere.
And school, best friends.
Yeah.
You hear so many times, best friend for life, and then suddenly you're enemies for life. Yeah. What's the deal with that?
Or even your bullies, for that matter.
Bullies for life?
No,
That was
hopefully not. You've got an American president, that's more than enough.
We're not going there, Omair.
Steering clear of that.
Not today.
Not today. I think as far as relationships are concerned, and the fact that so many people do feel like they're the victims, that's where intent comes in.
Yeah.
Wow, I just realized that their intent is, or their understanding of their intent is, that we are givers without realizing that they're not.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why they feel as if they're the victims. If they were courageous enough with their partners as much as they were with themselves, they would realize that no, the problem perhaps lies with both of them.
Yeah.
People disguise themselves as unconditional lovers. What about them? People will always say that I'm unconditional in this relationship. I'm always the one giving. But But then there is a problem there again. You're giving to get.
In the words of the
But can
Your
you ever
actions.
give not to get?
Of course you can.
Why?
All right, there's a mother over there. Let's ask her. An unconditional relationship is, we've all experienced it from one point of the other.
She wants a peck on her face.
I
She
do.
would
It's-
appreciate it if she receives it. You see that. She never raised a child so that she could get a peck, but when the peck came, she was grateful and she will never forget it. Your unconditional relationship that you've received is who? The parents, your mentors, someone out there, right? Our personal life heroes. They were our unconditional givers. That's who they are. They wanted nothing. If you want bigger cases, then of course you've got Mother Teresa, you've got Edie, you've got so many great people who are unconditional givers.
Yeah.
And remember, and let's say Edie, for example, and this is an example I love giving. Edie, during the times of the golden capitals of the world, Karachi, that's when he started.
Yeah.
And by the time he expired, Karachi, you know where it was or where it had reached. His own Edie center got robbed, but he felt secure, fulfilled, in harmony, and powerful.
Yeah.
How? He was a master, he was not a victim.
Edie is an interesting point. People like Edie are rare. Most of the people think about their own ulterior motives. What would you recommend to people who only think about their own selves?
Don't. Because if you want to exist in this world, yes, there are two components to my answer. One is that, yes, people exist based on their relationships with others, and these relationships are transactions. But sometimes, to coexist with other people, you have to give, and you have to give unconditionally. You have to kill your ego. And to quote pop philosophy, which is basically, you know, this book that came out a while ago. It was called The Secret, that what you put out in the universe comes back to you. So if you're putting out something positive, it's going to come back to you in one way or the other. Maybe that will sound transactional as well, but why not try that? Why not try and have the intent to be positive and just give without condition once in a while? You might surprise yourself.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Any word of advice to takers? And we have plenty of professional takers.
Oh, way too many. Fight the fear. Essentially, the fear that if I don't, I will die. And look at yourself. Is this the way you want to live life? Is this truly success? Is it secure, fulfilled, powerful, and harmonious? Because if you're dropping any one of those balls, you actually essentially drop the entire set. And then give it a shot. Give it a shot. Try to be generous where generosity is concerned for them, not yourself. Try to be courageous in the benefit of someone else. Just try it. See how that experience goes. And if nothing else, recall the last time of your greatest joy, not pleasure, joy, that you recall that was amazing. And I can assure you it is where someone gave to you unconditionally. And that's where your experience was. So give to others.
Today you heard our guest talk about intent. Our intent was to give, to benefit you, to think about it. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Bye-bye.